Raising Lazarus. A little bit of an update on where we're at on the movements of Jesus. Remember, we talked about leaving the Mount of Transfiguration and moving towards the triumphal entry. Well, Jesus, after he leaves the mountain of Transfiguration, goes down to the Sea of Galilee. And at that point, he takes a secret trip down to Jerusalem. Don't know how long he stayed there for that. People differ on that. But he finally goes back to Galilee and brings his disciples down as if going through Samaria, and then he goes over to the Jordan River, crosses over, and goes down to the area called Perea. He takes several side trips to Jerusalem. We don't know how many. It was either 2, 3, or 4. I like to mark his trips by the number of times that he goes to the home of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. When he first gets to Perea, he visits their home, and that's the time when Martha complains about Mary not helping. Now you have this trip here where Lazarus dies, and Jesus goes there. And this was at least about 6 weeks before he would come back the final time. He would then go there again to their home where Mary would anoint him with oil for his death, and then there would be the triumphal entry. The issue of the 3 days, 4 days on how long a person's dead. It was generally believed by the Jews that when a person died, that their spirit hovered over the body for 3 days. That's why it was a tradition to mourn real loud and even hire other people to come in and make a lot of noise. This was their way of communicating to that spirit who was still there that we miss you and we mourn your death. At the end of 3 days, they could stop mourning because they felt like the spirit then left. That's why Martha didn't even consider that her brother could be raised from the dead at this point. Jesus had raised other people from the dead, and Martha knew that, but it was always in that 3-day window. But now she knew Jesus delayed his coming. 4 days have passed. No way the Spirit could come back into that body. We have the issue with the Sadducees. The Sadducees was the majority party in the council of the Sanhedrin. And at this point, the chief priest was also a Sadducee. Jesus never spent any time with them. He did not argue with them. He did not fuss at them. There was just no, he always argued with the Pharisees. But arguing was a way of teaching in that day. To this day, they would argue back and forth. And even though there was shouting back and forth and hard feelings, it was still a way of sifting through and learning. And Jesus always won those arguments. He never argued with the Sadducees, though, always with the Pharisees. Now with the resurrection, because the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection, they were more of a secular party. They had religious views, but they were more concerned with Rome and keeping their position. They were more affluent. And now with this resurrection, this caused them a lot of problems because they knew that some of the Pharisees were now starting to turn to Jesus. And this couldn't happen for their position to be solid. So they actually called in the Pharisees that were still on their side, and they worked together. They said, we've got to take care of this, and we have to take care of it fast. And 6 weeks later, they start to put the plan in action where they could kill Jesus. Well, come back next week when we give you more insights on the story of the week. We'll see you next week.